Hey everybody, today we're going to jump into the world of Baldur's Gate 3 as a Druid Barbarian and see what shenanigans and adventures we can get into. BG3 has huge potential for min-maxing, role-playing, and just some really cool class combos, but who needs that when you can just bear smack people? It's over. How do you bear smack people? I'm glad you asked. First, let's set up our character. Since I wanted to use Wild-Shapin most of the time, I went with a Druid and set my ability scores for high Dex, Con, and Wisdom. The Dex and Con will help with my AC in human form, while the Dex will help with my initiative rolls. The Wisdom is for casting spells when the need arises, and for saving throws, while Charisma and Intelligence were left low as those saving throws are less common, and neither stat will be important to my build. Strength also was intentionally left low since we take on the physical stats of the creatures we transform into anyway. For skill proficiency, I picked up Nature, Animal Handling, and Perception as these seem to make thematic sense for my character. Finally, I picked up a few spells, but these really aren't going to matter much past the first level, and I made my bear boy an old human dude, just because. Now it was time to get into the action. So after waking up from cryo sleep, I took the elevator up to try and pick up my good friend Us, but I was still a bit groggy from the recent tadpole insertion surgery, and couldn't figure out how to help him. Oh well. Then Lae'zel backflips to stab me in the chest before realizing we can be friends, and we fight our way together to Shadowheart's pod and bust her out with a bit of worm power. Finally, it was time to make our escape. Now, Commander Zalk here has a pretty nice two-handed sword to loot, or at least it worked that way in the early access, so I take a run at him, but my Mind Flayer boss can't hit the broadside of a barn, and then the reinforcements showed up, so it was time to leave. I slapped some slimy worms together so they could French, and then we were on our way. A quick rock to the head, and I was safely back on the beach. A little ways down the path, I see Shadowheart and her shiny spiky rock, which I try to reach for, but she of course wakes up right then, so we decide we are both equally screwed and we should stick together. After a bit of beach looting and brain killing, we get our first level up. So at level 2, I of course took Circle the Moon for my subclass, as this will let me wild shape into much stronger animals much earlier, and also allows me to heal myself while in animal form with Lunar Mend. While spells won't be too important for this build, one notable one I picked up here was Speak with Animals, which will come in handy later, and which made sense thematically. Now that I could be a bear, it was bear smacking time. But first, we had to round out our party. So we came across Astarion next, who tried to trick us and attack us, but our perception was high enough, we actually caught him before he could strike. This was pretty cool for me actually, as this is the first time my perception was high enough to get this result. So after a short conversation, Astarion decides to join us as well, again because we are all equally screwed with the tadpoles in our heads. At this point, I decided to take a little detour because there is a secret Harper stash hidden under a rock nearby. Now to get this, you have to pass a nature check and then be able to actually move the rock. Thankfully, Astarion passed the check, now I just needed to move the rock. Now certain spells can move it, for instance I think I've done it with Thunderwave before, but you can also move it if you have a high enough strength score. Now no one in my party had the necessary strength, but my bear form did. In fact, as a bear my strength score is a 19, which I'm sure will come in handy later. Haha! But now it was time to move on, and a little ways down the road we found a Mind Flayer under some rubble. We don't much like those guys, so it was time for the first bear slap. My, was it glorious. Critical hit and all. So after the most beautiful bear slap, it was time to find Gale. Now, Gale has himself trapped in this hole in space-time I guess, and can only manage to stick his hand out. Well, it was high time for some shenanigans, so... Slap the hand. Slap. Yes! Yes, slap the hand.
Perhaps I should have clarified. Helping and...
I'm sorry. My fun had, I guess it was time to actually help him. So with a quick tug, we brought him back into reality. Now it was time to level him up, and now is probably a good time to talk about my team build idea for this run. So my team build is rather simple, but I think it will work really well as it has so far. So my main character is strong as a beast for now at least, but the real bonus is the extra health pool. As an animal, if I lose all my HP, I just revert back to my human form and still have my own HP. On top of this, I can wild shape multiple times and get those charges back on just a short rest. And what's even more, I can use Lunar Mend to heal myself while in animal form. So what I have essentially is a sponge tank with 2 health pools and multiple ways to heal. The bear form also has a roar which can goad enemies into focusing on me and my health pool instead of my allies. Later when I pick up a level in Barbarian, I'll be able to add in Rage, so long as I do it before wild shaping, for extra damage resistances. So the tank role is covered really well here by my main character. Next though is my healer. I'm going to focus on healing and buffs with Shadowheart. If I use her to cast things like Shield of Faith on my Druid and then use her healing to keep me in animal form, my Druid will be near unkillable. Then for my Wizard, I'll have Gale focus on control abilities, which will hopefully slow down attacks on my Druid and create openings for my Rogue. Speaking of which, I'll have Astarion be my Assassin, taking advantage of my Bear drawing in enemies so he can sneak attack them and overall be my DPS character. So far this plan is working really well, but we'll see if it's able to hold up later in the game. For now, it was time to delve into the nearby ruins for our first real adventure. We get started by telling the looters that the ship that came down was full of monsters and that they should just leave. Thankfully, we are convincing enough and they leave. Then we trick the door guard into thinking we are his boss, he unlocks the door, and when he realizes we aren't who we say we are, he decides to draw his weapon on 4 well-armed individuals. Unfortunately for him, one of those individuals is secretly a bear, and he gets the second bear slap of the run. Yes. Moving into the next room, we decided to go stealthy. Astarion managed to sneak attack with his bow, move up, and then get Maria here when she tried to run. Then we were able to get the jump on the next room full of enemies too. A few bear slaps later, and we were victorious. Now it was time to move into the basement for some looting and a fight with some undead. During the looting though, we had a hiccup. See, we went into the tomb room here and covered up the gas vents so we could get a quick grab and go on the treasure in the sarcophagus. However, we hadn't detected the trap on the sarcophagus itself, so when I tried to open it, all I did was set off the traps. Then Astarion tried to dodge the fireballs to get the treasure, but yeah. Oh, he's gonna just die. So a quick reload, and this time we went around disarming the fireball launchers and actually managed to disarm the trap on the sarcophagus itself and easily looted the treasure. With Shadowheart equipped with her new spear, it was time to take on the undead. After spending a few minutes turning on the lights and doing some more grave robbing, we hit the switch to the secret chamber and woke up the dead. With this fight having more ranged fighters, I wasn't able to get bear slapping as much, but thankfully, the rest of the team had plenty of range. After a minute, we came out with a win and chatted up our new friend Withers. Now it was almost time for the big goblin fight at the Druid Grove, but first we had one more stop to make. Lae'zel had somehow got herself caught and ended up in a suspended cage. So with a little inspiration, we were able to convince her captors to leave. After a short conversation with Lae'zel, we told her to go to camp because we don't need her, at least not right now. Then, arriving at the Druid Grove, we see a panicked Eredin and his men trying to get in, but Zevlor takes a minute too long to help, and now the goblins attack. From our perch on the hill here, we have a really good position to start raining down spells and arrows, but first we have to take care of the 2 goblins that somehow magically appeared next to us. After doing so, I get the first use out of the sleep spell, which works so very well, because there is no saving throw against it. As long as the enemy is under the hit point limit, it will be put to sleep, which is awesome. However, the enemies can shove their sleeping friends to wake them up, which honestly, I wasn't even mad about because this is some awesome AI. I'll just have to be more strategic with my sleep spell in the future. But back to the fight, Astarion was the star of this show with some timely crits and high damage, with little old bear me seeing less action. In the end, it was the missiles, magic and mundane, that won this one. After some quick looting, it was time to watch the boxing match between Eredin and Zevlor, which we decided to stay out of. Then after Zevlor explained the situation in the grove, it was time to take a break while we stared at this magnificent beard. Check out this video next or use the link below to watch the full stream. Thank you so much for watching, have a great day, and keep on gaming.